Oh, hi. Welcome to my channel. I'm Ronnie Walter. I am an illustrator, a watercolor artist, and I'm also the creator of Sketch Cute, which is a method of drawing, elevating your doodles into really cute drawings. Okay, today's video. It's a little longer than usual, so stick with it. It's a little more complex. Here is the design we are doing today. This charming little autumnal envelope with just a burst of exuberant flowers. I hope you enjoy this. This needs a little patience. It took me some patience to do this, but I think the result is going to be really fun and you can adapt this any way that you like. So I hope you enjoy this video, and thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So take care and have a lovely creative day. Let's start painting. We're going to paint this little envelope with a bunch of exuberant fall flowers coming out of it. So what I did is I did this super fast sketch. Because I decided to do this in 5x7, I decided to blow up the design. I just made it bigger on the copier so that it fit in a 5x7 in space better, because with this size, with the kind of painting we're going to do today, I think you need a little more real estate to work in. Otherwise, it's just going to feel really cramped. So anyway, I have embellished it slightly since I transferred it to my watercolor paper. And so I'm just going to paint on the watercolor paper, but you will see how that works when we get started painting. And I just want to say, be kind to yourself. If you are new to this, or you're coming back to it after a long period of time, it's okay. It's a piece of paper. We can make more. And the more you do, the better you get. So I just want you to be kind to yourself as we go forward, as I try to do that for myself every day. I have a graphite pencil, and I'm going to use a kneaded eraser. Any graphite pencil, we're going to use it sparingly because we don't want to have to deal with it afterwards, and a kneaded eraser. Right now, I'm going to be using this number 10 Princeton Velvet Touch. It's a round brush. I may use a smaller one as we go forward, and if I do, it will be this Princeton Velvet Touch number 6. Okay? Both rounds. I will be using a Micron waterproof ink. I'm going to use a 101. Okay. So what I have done is I did two really fast sketches. We're doing this idea that it's a little envelope with flowers coming out. This is the Christmas version, and this is more of an autumnal version. But you could do this with spring flowers. You could do it with hearts for Valentine's Day. So we're going to do this. These are really super loose, and I've kind of embellished them a little bit when I transfer them to the paper. And what I did is I have a little light box, and I transferred these via my light box to the watercolor paper. And then I'm going to go in with my kneaded eraser and really erase a lot of this. I will be able to see it. You may not. But here's the good news. I will have really detailed tracings that you can, or a template that you can trace. And that is in the description in this video. So go and download that. It's free. It's just a link to where I host any of my digital downloads. So you just go there, print it out, and then you can trace this and make it your own, because you will make it your own. Okay, here's the other thing I did. This is going to be a little looser than some of my paintings. So in my watercolor sketchbook, I went through and kind of played around with how I want to make some of these shapes. So this is kind of it's going to be my, not a guide necessarily, but I wanted to make sure that I could make the kind of shapes that I wanted. I'm going to be using the line work in a little looser or lighter touch than in some of my other tutorials. But I just wanted to play around with some of these marks and shapes and see if I liked them. So far, that's what I did. it's a good idea. Just have another piece of paper, or just spend some time not feeling like you're going to go to a finished product and just work on some of the shapes. What do you want them to look like? How would you use your brush and all of that? So that's what I did on that. So I'm going to set that aside for now. And then my paints, my usual suspects. We have this plastic palette that has a range of colors. They're all tube paints that I have put into these spaces and let dry, so they work as like a cake type watercolor paint. Most of these are from Blick Studios. They're private label, but they don't make them anymore. So as we go, I'm replacing them with other brands. Some are Cotman, W-N-Cotman, and some are, well, in my auxiliary palette, these are Windsor-Newton-Cotman. This is a core. It's Golden Paints watercolor line, which I like, but I only have one color of it, but I'll be getting more of those because, you know, we love our art supplies. Okay, so these are the paints I'm going to use. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll set those aside. I also, here, high tech, I also have 2 jars of water. One is for swooshing out my brush when it's dirty, and one I try to keep as clean as possible to mix paint when I'm mixing up my paint. The other thing that I have here that you can't see is I have a big cup of tea here. And I keep it far away from my water jugs because you know how we are. You know I'm going to eventually put my brush into my tea water, so I keep them in a very separate space. Okay, so I'm going to go through. I noticed on my drawing that I didn't draw this envelope shape in this one, so I'm just going to draw that really quickly. I kind of know where it goes because I drew it on the other one. So that kind of goes in there. Okay, so I am going to take my kneaded eraser. These are very inexpensive and they're super handy. Even if you use it like a regular eraser where you just rub out, it doesn't leave crumbs. And it's good for watercolor paper because it doesn't disturb the texture of the paper, which of course we don't want disturbed. But to make your drawing kind of start to disappear, you just daub at it. And I will speed up this film because I think you get the point. I like to keep a fairly tidy table, but I'm going to keep my kneaded eraser close by in case I see that I need to do more erasing as I go. Sometimes it's a little too much. Okay, so I'm going to keep that nearby. I have my glasses, of course. You know, we of a certain age need those specs. And then the other thing I have is a water bottle. And I'm going to come in and activate my paints. This just gets them going, you know, makes them watery. What did I do with the lid? Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to move that watercolor pad out of the way. And let's get going. The first thing I'm going to do, just make sure I don't have any excess water on my table surface here. And I'm going to come back in to my disappearing illustration. I don't know if you can see that, but I can. And if you're following along or going along, then you'll be able to see yours. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the center of these sunflower-esque, and I'm going to use this burnt sienna. Oh, I have one other thing here, and that is I have a scrap piece of watercolor paper, the same that I'm using. Oh, and by the way, this is a Canson Montval is the watercolor paper. It's a cold press. Okay, so I like to test my colors over here to make sure I have the right saturation, that I'm looking for. So that's a nice, that is a lovely brown just as is. So I'm just going to go in and start to, these are going to get embellished, but I'm just going to make these little circles here of the inside of my sunflowers. And with watercolor, of course, you need to let it dry. So things, I mean, sometimes you want things to blend together and sometimes you don't. So I'm daubing off my, so you have to let certain things dry while you work on other things. So I'm going to, I want to use a nice autumnal color palette with this. So I am going to, these two flowers are going to be kind of a zinnia-esque, that's too much pencil on there still, flower. So those I want to have kind of a purpley color. But first I'm going to go in and they're going to have yellow centers. So I'm going to go back to my main palette and get some of that yellow going. And I'll probably put a little, there's a little permanent red, or that's Cadmium Red Light in there. So I love this kind of golden yellow color. So those are just gonna, these are sort of going to match as much as I let things match. And come back in with a little more of the cadmium red and just give it a little extra. It's nice to put multiple colors in there because it's paint. And that's what's fun. Okay, so we have those going, and then I'm going to come back in with petals on each of those things. I have these funny little kind of clustery flowers up there, and I want to make those kind of I don't exactly know what they are. Some people care. I kind of don't. But I have this cadmium red and then this Quinacridone Rose. So that is, I'm kind of making it just a little bit of a cooler red. That's kind of pretty. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to dump off some of that paint, and I'm going to go in and kind of make them into some, I don't want it to be a solid mass. I'm just going to add some little, and then when we put our line work in, and I'm going to add a little more color to that, we'll come in and have them have a little more form. Let's see, I got those 3, and then here's another one. And sometimes, this is why I do the tracing after I do this painting, is because sometimes I'm on the fly a little bit. Because I'm going to add one more of these over here for balance. Okay, yeah, those are kind of cute. All right, then clean that brush a little bit. I think we can come back. The sunflowers are dry, so I'm going to come in. I think this is when I'm going to use my smaller brush. I am going to make a decent sized puddle of this. It is cadmium yellow medium with a little, I'm going to add more water to that. And I'm going to test it over here to make sure it's, yeah, that is really pretty. I want it to be that really golden, like almost like the sun's hitting it. And I'm going to use this number 6 brush. So this is the number 6 round, and I'm going to test over here to see if I like, because I want to be able to, here, we're going to get this out of the way. We're going to do a quick demo. Because I want these, like, your brush should have, your brush should be full of paint when you're painting. You want to have it nice in the belly of the brush, as they call it, which is the fat part. And so sometimes it helps to just go in and do just a, bring it out, like hit it on the edge and then bring it out. And that makes a really nice petal. So practicing that can be really helpful. what you want to avoid doing is trying to draw them. I mean, you can do that, but I think there's something about that looseness that we're trying to achieve in this particular painting that is a good thing. Okay. All right. I feel comfortable with that. And sometimes it's good to do this just to get your, it's kind of a warm up, and get your hand ready for when you're going to put it on your final art, or what we'll pretend is final art. Okay, time for a slurp of tea. The other thing about my tea is I microwave it about 900 times because I'm always letting it get cold. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here and start making these petals really loose, kind of irregular, because, you know, sunflowers always have that, they always look a little bit on the raggedy side, which I really like, because, you know, the air is, you know, moving them around. I'm going to have that sort of behind. And I may have pencil that shows up at the end of this, but I'm not going to really worry about that because it adds to the artistic quality of it. That's what we're going with. So I like what's happening there. It feels loose, it feels free, because sunflowers do have that, you know, they're just kind of there's something about them, and they tend to, at least where I am in the Midwest of the U.S., they tend to come at the end of the season when you might be, you know, you do get tired of summer sometimes. So when you see the sunflowers, it's sort of a sign that, ooh, things are changing. Okay, so we're just going to bring those out. And they can be wonky and irregular. That is just fine. We want them to feel like we don't want them to feel stiff, like artificial sunflowers. We want them to feel like the real deal, that the wind is taking them and they're just kind of loose. These might be a little long in the petal, as opposed to long in the tooth. But again, we're not botanical illustrators, or I'm not. You might be. You might care more than I do. So I'm kind of coming in, and because I'm going to come in with that purple on that one, and that's going to be kind of on the top. Okay, these are, I'm happy. I'm happy. Okay. Then I have one more of these up here. I'm going to start it over here. So again, we're just bringing those out kind of into a point. And we're going to embellish them a little bit with, once we put, sometimes it's hard to talk and paint at the same time, but I'm doing my best. Anyway, once we put the line work in, they're going to have a little more definition than they do here. Okay, I'm not following my line completely, and you can as much as you want. Okay. So the one thing I liked about my little sample, I'm going to grab that again, is when it's dried, I put a little darker in there. So I'm going to wait for that to dry. I put a little more, a little orangier on the edge there. So I'm going to come in and I will do that again, just to give it a little more depth. Okay. Well, that I'm happy with that, and we're gonna give that a little more depth when it's time. Okay, I think now I have this little kind of a seed pod thing going on over here, and I realize I just have one of those. It's usually good to have, you don't want to just have one of something. It seems kind of like an orphan. So I think I'm going to add one, because I have a little room up here. I'm going to add one up there, and maybe like a little indication of one up in there. And I think I might do kind of a phthalo blue, which I think is a nice autumnal color, especially because we're going to come in with some purple. So having a blue in there will be great. Okay, clearly I am thinking about this out loud. So planning, details. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a little bit of this phthalo blue, which is kind of a greenish blue. And let's see. I'm going to add some Sap Green to that. That's a pretty teal, isn't it? Is that what we want? Let's add a little more phthalo to that. Bring it back to the blue side. Yeah, I think I want a little bluer, even bluer. I don't know, maybe that was a mistake to add that green. Hard to say. Okay, now that's too intense. See what we do? See what we do here. Okay. So I'm drying off my brush a little bit. Okay, I think I'm happy with that blue. It's a little bit, it just feels a little more gray to me. I don't want it to be like a super poppy blue. So let's go in, and again, kind of like what I did with these flower forms, is I'm just going to put, these are going to be more dotty than the other ones. Those are a little looser. So I'm coming in, I don't quite know what these are going to look like. Yeah, I think that's going to be cute. Okay, so let's put one up here. Trying to get my hand. And I'm just eyeballing this one. And they don't have to be exact. Because again, we're not doing botanical drawings. We're doing something that is going to lift someone's spirits when they see it. And unless they're a master gardener, we're not worried about that. And then I feel like if I put one right there, it's going to feel really triangular. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to leave it there. So I'm going to go in and dry off my brush a little bit, clean it off and dry it, and kind of hoover up some of that excess paint. And again, we're going to make this all make sense with the line work. Okay, I kind of like that. Okay, I'm going to go back into the center of my sunflowers, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to use that burnt sienna, make up a little pile of that. And oh, you know what? I did it over here. The secret compartment. This is a funny little palette. Okay, I hope you can see this. Over here, when I did my little test over there, I did this burnt sienna, and I added some Payne's Gray for my other palette. If you don't have Payne's Gray, you could use another kind of blue, because I want to really intensify that brown. And this to me makes a nice brown. So I'm adding this Payne's Gray, and then we can test it over here if it's dark enough. See, that's pretty. Okay, it's kind of like milk chocolate and dark chocolate. Okay, so I'm just going to do kind of a center deal on these, just giving it a little more. And I think after that dries, we're going to put even a deeper center in, because, you know, a sunflower has that, it kind of almost has a hole in the middle of it where the seeds come out. We're not going to get that literal, but you can see where I'm going here, because I want to have a nice value. And we don't talk a lot about value, but value is, you know, light to darkness. And so it's nice to have a range of values in a painting, even as simple as and sweet and whimsical as these paintings are. We still want to have that balance, so that otherwise it can get looking really flat. So I think that's going to help that. It'll just, well, it's not just going to help it, it's just going to be part of the deal. So I'm again sucking up some of that excess paint. All right, well, this is coming along. This is coming along. I'm working a little slower than sometimes I do. I sometimes get a little I wouldn't say cocky, but I get to a point where I think like, oh, I know how to do this. This one I'm not as confident in my hand in a looser, kind of more realistic, if you will, painting than more my whimsical stuff. So we're on this road together, kids, and we'll keep going. Okay, so things have dried a bit, and I'm going to go in and make the purple that I want for these zinnia-esque flowers in there. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to, I have a Cotman Mauve. I don't know exactly where this is going yet. We're going to play around with some color to see if we like it. So this is basically the mauve, which is very pretty. I'm going to make it a little more intense. And I think I'm going to add just a titch of ultramarine. Make it a little more purpley. I definitely want more intensity. So a little more of that, a little more of that. See how scientific this is? A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. No, I still don't have enough intensity. Saturation, I guess, would be the word I'm looking for. Okay, I'm feeling better about that. Okay, I was just mixing with my number 10 brush, so I'm gonna move back to my 6. And we're gonna do similar to what we did with the sunflowers as far as putting the petals in sort of randomly, but I want them to have more rounded edges. So I'm going to come in from the outside and go in until I don't. The thing with painting is to have a confident hand, a controlled hand, but still feel like you're willing to let things happen the way they happen. Okay, I like that purple against there. And again, we're going to kind of do what we did. What I'm planning to do with the yellow is to kind of zhuzh up the middle and give it a little contrast. I am coming across that yellow a little bit. Again, that's the art part. And the thing with painting is you're making a lot of kind of micro decisions along the way. And some of them you're not going to like. And some you're going to go, oh, well, that was a cool thing. You know, as our friend Bob Ross used to say, it's a happy accident. And we go with that. Just like life, sometimes happy accidents happen. Sometimes not so happy, but when we're painting, they are happy accidents. The rest of the world can just wait for us. Oh, this is turning out really cute, you guys. All right. This is looking cute. Okay, now that my yellow is dry, my petals for the sunflower, I am going to go in and go into the centers and add a little something to that. So these are the petals I was kind of practicing on. I want to make sure that needs a little more water, a little too thick, and go in and we're just going to hit the middles of those. Okay, so we're just going to go through the middle and hit those. I'm going to try to stay away from my purple as much as possible, but I think it will do it. And this again is going to add to the depth and adding a little value to my painting. Oh, I didn't tell you these. I'm working on 5x7 today. You know, I often make small things that can be made into cards, but something with this much detail, I went with a larger size just because you could still send it to someone easily in an envelope, or you could frame it. And I like to do things in frameable sizes, so 5x7 is very common in the US, probably Canada too, and or whatever your equivalent is to a pre-made frame, so you don't have to pay for, you know, expensive framing. Yeah, that's pretty cute. I might go in later and have a little heavier red in there Okay, I'm liking what's going on here. That didn't get a lot of contrast. We'll try that again. Okay. All right. Ooh, this is fun. Okay, so now I'm going to do some of my leaves. So I've got, I'm still in camera range here. Yes, just barely. So this is a sap green. This is a very lovely green, just right out of the tube. And again, we're testing it. And we're going to do a similar kind of shape. I have some that I'm going to do. We want to make sure there's a variety here. And sunflowers have a really thick stalk. So I'm going to go in with conviction here and make that stalk. And then I'm going to come in. They kind of have sort of fat leaves too. Kind of a bulbous shaped leaf. And I'll come in and just a little flare on there. Okay, that's pretty cute, pretty cute. This one, let's take a leaf off the side there with the sap green. And I'm going to try to do different greens for each one of the kinds of flowers we have. And we're just going to come in and paint that one in. And then maybe just put a little stalk that's going to go into the envelope. It's not exactly how a sunflower works, but it's how painting works. We're making it work. All right, so it's starting to come. Do I seem nervous? I feel a little nervous with this one because it does feel a little more complex than my normal routine. Okay, so we have this. Now, these are kind of there's a couple of leaf forms that are coming out of here that are more like, I want it to look kind of grayish, like a fern. I also have Hooker's Green Light here. It's very close to sap green. And then, okay, this is the Windsor green, and I'm just gonna, because why not? We can make any kind of green we want. Okay, that made enough difference in the green to the first one. Let's just compare and contrast. Yeah, that's a little brighter. Okay, I like that. That's what I'm gonna make these little leaf forms that are just leaves that are coming out. And I just made that color up. So again, we're just making these little, I'm gonna go behind that. And the stems will happen with the line work. They're coming out there. And we're coming out here. This is a little bit fussier than what I normally do, but I believe in always stretching yourself. Old dogs, new tricks and all that. Okay, so we're going to make a leaf there. Don't put your hand in the paint, Ronnie. I have a tendency to be kind of a bull in a china shop sometimes when I'm painting, and I end up with my hand through the paint. Don't recommend that. And I think I intended to have one over here, so I'm going to put one here, whether I intended it or not. And that's the beauty of this idea, is this jumble of stuff coming out of this envelope to just, I want it to feel exuberant and fun, and I'm here, and I'm glad I'm sending this to you kind of a feel. So that's what we're doing here. Okay. I think we have a lot of the painting done. Let's go into that purple again. And, oh, I really mucked that up. And my brush wasn't completely cleaned off of the green. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the mauve. It's just marvelous. I'm sorry, I apologize. And maybe we should go in to just have that bright mauve. Oh, that would be pretty. All right, decision made. Oh, I have paint on my finger, which I'm sure that old. Okay, So I'm just going to go in like I did with the other ones and put a little blob of that purple on these shapes. I'll come around to this one too. Get a little more paint. I will come and hoover that up. And that's looking really pretty. I'm happy with that. Very happy. Yeah, that's fun. Just take your time. Take your time. And because I made these little, whatever we're calling these seed pods, I'm going to go in and hit those with a little bit of a shadow, just with the same paint. I just added water to that little puddle, and we're just going to add a little shadow at the bottom. Just hit it just a little bit. It just is enough to make it more interesting. We're probably going to use our white pen on those too. Okay, I'm really happy. I am going to paint that heart that's on the envelope. So we're going to get this. I want it to have a little bit of more of a pinky pink on the top. I'm going to suck that out. Always have that little kitchen towel with you, or tissue, or some people use like a fabric. Right now I have an excessive amount of paper towels. Okay, and now I'm just going to add that warmer red at the bottom just to make it just that much cuter. Okay, like we said, we were going to go back into these forms that don't have a name, those red things. And I'm going to do the same as what I did, and I'm just going to add some darker red, just enough to give it a little shape. Okay, and then cleaning off my brush, I'm going to go back to that brown. Yeah, this is watercolor for you. You just keep adding, you keep coming back until you think you have overworked it, and then as soon as you're one step away from overworking, then stop. Of course, we don't know where that line is. But I'm going to put just a kind of a dot in the middle of that, of this darker. I just added more pigment to the burnt sienna. I added a little more burnt sienna and a little more Payne's gray to make that just a little bit darker, and boom, put that right in the middle. Okay, so we're working this thing, and we're not far from putting in line work yet. I do want a little more contrast on that sunflower. So I'm gonna go pretty strong here. I'm gonna take my smaller brush. I hope I'm not making you dizzy as I move brushes and palettes around, but I'm going pretty red on here, which is a nice autumnal red. In fact, I'm gonna add a little bit more. That's too much. It's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to go in and right on the edge, put smaller amounts of that orange on the edge. Sometimes you live to regret some of these things, but yeah, we've regretted things in life. Way worse than a little painting. Okay. There. I think when that dries, that's going to be really cute. Okay. Sucking up the excess. Yeah, that's really cute. Okay. I'm just kind of drawing that out a little bit, making it a little more. There. Okay. All right, Ronnie, stop. Stop. Okay, because this is this little envelope story, which so far we've ignored the envelope, is I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a little trim around the edge of the envelope so we can see that it's an envelope. Again, a lot of that's going to happen in the drawing part, but let's go in. I'm going to use, you know, I love blue and white. Or actually, maybe you don't know that. By the way, I really love blue and white. So I'm going to do a little puddle of ultramarine. And I want to make sure that I have some down because I'm going to do a little second stripe. I'm going to move my palette out of the way because my hand is going to be in the way. So you know that I have a brush full of ultramarine. And I'm just going to make an edge on that envelope. And this can be quirky, as she says, as she paints a really quirky shape. And then it's going to come that way because that's kind of the edge of the envelope, and that way. So it's becoming going behind. Okay. I'm not going to put it at the top of the envelope because that would be the inside flap, which theoretically is going to cover that heart, but you know, details. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to stripe it just to give it a little designery look. It's going to be really cute. And I'm going to paint a tiny shadow on the, so it's lifting off the paper a little bit. Okay, that sometimes takes some guts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that Payne's gray, and I kind of mucked up my little spot on the palette with the brown. So I'm going to clean that off. I just have this little tiny space for my Payne's gray. Here, I'll move this around so you can see my little tiny space. And I'm going to go in and make that as clean as possible with Payne's gray. Payne's gray is a really lovely gray. It's kind of a bluish gray. It's kind of stormy, running out of, but you can see it's kind of just a lovely gray. All right, so here, this is where all bets are off, people. Okay, all I'm doing is I'm going to do a tiny, again, I need to get the palette out of the way a little bit. I'm just going to do an edge there, the outside edge of that envelope there, and then just a swoosh over there and let it drop. And again, that just set off the envelope. Okay, don't overwork it. Don't overwork it. And then when I come in with my line work, it's going to just, it will tell the story a little bit more. Okay, one thing I'm noticing, and you'll notice this, sometimes you need to step away and look at it like, okay, what's missing? And I feel like there needs to be one of those leaves right there. So I'm going to come back in, and hopefully there's enough paint here of that green that I can never replicate, and put a leaf right there. Yeah, that was enough. Yep. See? Sometimes that works. I feel like I could use something over here, but I don't want to mess with it. I'm okay as is. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and put a little bit of shadow in the sunflower leaves. So I just mixed up a little bit more intensity, and I'm just going to hit those edges so they look a little dark on one side in the same color. Yeah, it just gives it a little something. All right. Okay. I feel pretty confident to go with the line work. Now, here's the beauty of using our Micron, which is waterproof, is I'm going to go in and do this line work once it dries. And if I feel like it needs more color, I'll add more color. And it's waterproof, so I can paint on top of this. Very important. Very important. Okay, I'm going to let this dry and I will come back. Okay, just realized I started doing the line work and I had not hit record on my camera. Details. So just to backtrack, what I said to myself is I'm doing a loose line. I'm not doing like a super literal outlining of, I'm not doing this. I'm doing kind of a loose line. So the line becomes sort of its own animal. So if it helps to get that feel using your scrap paper, then feel free to do that. Okay, so I did this and I started over here. And I also decided just to put little dots in the center of these sunflowers instead of trying to make all those seeds that are in a really beautiful regulated pattern. I'm not doing that. Okay, so here I go again, but this time recording. A crazy idea for a video. So just really loose. That purple is going to come on top, so I'm going to kind of let those, I'll let the other ones happen because that's going to go on top as well. You have to kind of think about things like that. And every once in a while you make a mark like, oh, I don't like that mark, but you know, again, it's one mark. We're going for cheerful, we're going for lighthearted, playful, and I think we're achieving that with this. I'm just going to put one tiny little mark there. Okay, so then I'm doing kind of these little tiny hash marks, very irregular. Some have one, some have two. And using, my hand is super loose and I'm just not worrying about precision here. And I think this is turning out so cute. Okay, so let's, because I want to go on top, let's do the zinnia-esque. And I'm going to do that kind of hairy. And we're going to put some marks on the inside of that just to make it a little bit different than the center of the sunflower. I love making marks. It's like, it's just so fun. Okay, so these we said were a little rounder, so we're going to go around. But again, you can see I'm going kind of fast. I want them to be loose. I want a kind of that lighthearted, easy look. You know, you're not after a photographic representation of our imaginary flowers. We're just going to make these really cute. Okay, now that I have that done, that is adorable. Okay, I'm just saying, that's adorable. I'll go back in and do the ones that are behind here. Okay, I'm not sure I've ever made a cuter flower than that purple one. All right, let's try to top myself. No, there's no competition here. Again, we are kind to ourselves. We are learning with every mark. We are enjoying this process, right? Right. That is what we're doing. I don't know exactly what's happening back there, but I'm not going to worry about it. Again, really cute. Really, really cute. Okay, now we can go back in. Trying to see. I guess that is behind, so we're going to just do this. And we'll come in behind there. Oh, they got a little wonky in the side there, but. And if you feel yourself getting loose, take a break. Loosen up your hand, shake it out. That tends to happen where you're working on it and you're getting more tight as you go. So that's the time to step away or go have a big slug of tea or walk around a little bit. Go microwave your tea. Okay, so yeah. Sometimes this comes alive with line work. I'm always impressed with people that don't use line work in their watercolors. It just has always been my default. I think this is turning out really cute. Really cute. Okay, we're going to start to go into some of these leaves, so we might as well start here. And again, we're doing that same thing. I don't care that I'm not hitting right on the edge of that. In fact, we like adding a little extra something on there. We'll put a little vein in there. That's getting really cute. Okay. All right. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. Okay, so I didn't really indicate where the stems are on these purple things. We're going to come down. Everything's going to land. You know, actually, that's kind of cool to not have those in color. That adds a little something. And we're just going to give them little indicators of leaves. I kind of like that there's no color there. Okay, we're going to come up and do these. These have a stem that are going to come down. You kind of have to make your eye follow because, and if you need to redraw that in pencil, that's fine. And that comes down and lands about there. This is really starting to come together. I'm loving this. I am loving this. Okay. And then this one has a stem that comes down. Yeah, close enough. And I want sort of that jumble of stems when we finish this. It's just going to look super exuberant that all this stuff is flying out of the envelope. Okay, cute, cute, cute. All right, so, oh, and this one never got a stem. So we might come back with paint for that one. Well, that's a little thicker stem on the sunflower, so we'll end up coming back with paint on that. And I also am gonna put some, a little extra on that blue part of the envelope. Okay, so these are really cute. I'm going to put a stem in there or a vein. Oh, this is my favorite part. I love this. Okay, so we have these little blue seed pod things that we don't know what they are. I probably could have used another one over there, but again. So I'm just going around these, sort of half and half, not trying to make a circle. So if I try to make a circle, it's going to frustrate the heck out of me, and it'll look tight. Okay, that's cute. So that needs to have a little stem that's going to come out. And we're just going to kind of join those up because we made up what these are. So whatever their forms are. See, I think that turned out really cute. So we're going to do the same with this one. And just go around kind of half and half. And then I'm going to put a stem there that's going to come down. Again, use your pencil on this. Don't be like me, who just assumes everything's going to work out. Okay, now on these red dealies, what we're going to do is I want to have like a little stem formation that comes in like this, just to make it a little bit different. Yeah, that's kind of those don't have to join up. And then I'm going to just do these little half circles as if this is a thing. Okay, this is turning out really, really sweet. Again, we're putting that little stemmy thing on there. And I kind of like that we're getting all this funny stem stuff happening over there. And these don't have to be right on the thing. You don't have to outline every single thing. I love what's happening here, to be honest with you. And again, we've got a stem that's going to come sort of there. Yeah, I needed to make that last mark. And then here, this is kind of hanging out the edge of the envelope. These are just little scoopy marks. Nothing to be afraid of. Okay, this is so cute. Okay, so I'm going to come in, and you might, in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to redraw my envelope because I'm kind of losing touch of where the edges are. So where's my pencil? So this is the edge of the envelope. I'll erase this after I do my line work. And it comes down here. These are coming in here and here. And then the back of the envelope is basically here. Okay. So I'm going to go behind everything, and then so I'm going to just do a really loose line. You could make it a double line if you like, but don't press super hard because we're going for this really kind of a more delicate line than some of the work that some of the videos I've done. I'm going to come in here. And again, if you can't draw a straight line all the way around, it's okay. Just kind of join it up again. And if you do kind of this double line, it looks like you meant it. Okay, that's pretty cute. And I'm going to come behind here and do the top of the envelope. Oh my gosh, you guys, so cute. Do my little heart. Okay, what are we missing? Okay, I'm going to paint that green in there. First thing I'm going to do is erase that pencil line I just made, because we are going to come in with some paint. There's a lot to be erased back in here, and that might help me see what I want to do here. Because we didn't follow exactly where I drew in there. Oh, you guys, I really like this. Okay, I'm going to do that green, and then we're going to come in and do that blue. But first, I'm going to put a second border on here on this envelope. And I'm not doing a full solid line because I can't. If you can, more power to you. But I love this sort of loose edge. Okay. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, now back to paint. Let's get our palette back again. And I'm going to go in. I was using that Sap Green, and I'm just going to do that one stem that I missed. There. Suck up that excess. Okay. Cute, cute, cute. Okay. And I like that extra little green in there. And I am going to leave those just as line work. And you know what we're going to do? Because this looks like it needs something. I'm just going to do a funny little leaf here. I mean, I'm making up this form. I might as well add a leaf to it. There. Did that do anything? I don't know, but it sure looks cute. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with, that was the Ultramarine Blue. Make sure my brush is clean, unlike often when I'm painting. And I don't want it super dark. Where was that ultramarine? Did I have it on here? Yeah. I want to make sure that there's enough contrast there. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Yeah, because all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and make it look kind of like just a little stripe. So I'm just drawing like a little mark, like a little box. Because I love blue and white. Get that out of the way. I will come and, yeah, I'm just using kind of the side of my brush to make that little box that I started over there. And let's do it there. A little more intensity on that paint. All right, I am super happy with this. And kind of bring up a little bit of that. I mean, I like the irregularity in the blues, because then you know it's watercolor. Well, I think we have a darling little painting here. What else would I do? Okay, now that it's done, of course there's more to do. I'm just going to come in with this green that I built over here. And this is the Windsor green. It's just called Windsor green. And Windsor green yellow shade. And I'm going to hit the sides just to give a little more something. There. Sometimes you just got to add that last little thing. Well, I am very happy with this. Now, like I said, you could frame this as is. I think it's really sweet, and you could do this in any kind of flowers. You could do it with hearts. You could do it like Christmas, which we're going to do in another video. And then you could write the word grateful, or it's just beautiful as is. So I am really happy with this. I hope you are too. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm so glad you're here. Really so glad you are here. This is amazing to hear from you and to read your comments. It's awesome. So having said that, I'm going to let you go and go paint. So you take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and go paint. Bye. Okay, I decided to do one more thing. After I gave you the final message. So I decided to do one more thing. What we're going to do is I'm going to come in, because I feel like it's not necessarily reading, the back of the envelope is reading well. Sorry, I'm cleaning off a hunk of my palette here. And I'm going to go in with a little ultramarine, really light, like lots of water. And that's still too light. They're too dark. Light, dark details. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to go into that background and do a really, really light blue. And let those leaves be preserved and come in. I don't know, I might be ruining this, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I am going to suck some of that up. But I'm going in and just giving that a little bit of, okay, I'll come in and pull that up. You know, I think that gives it the whole thing a little more structure. So I'm happy I did that. If I wasn't happy I did that, I would make myself happy for doing that. Okay, now we're finished. All right, now you may resume your life. Thank you, and talk to you soon. Bye.